Great to see you here. Now we are looking at the last project management process step, which is about project closing. There is only one step here, which is the closing project or phase. We look at project documentation and as-built plans. We look at the lessons learned and knowledge management. Project handover is very important, and we also have to verify what's happening with outstanding contracts and other issues. Let's have a look at a quick overview of step 10. Here we are in fact in the last step. We are going to close the project or the phase, and it's a very important step in project management because we are gathering a lot of information before the project will be officially closed. Once all the activities have been finished and the approved scope has been realized, approved doesn't mean the initial, but it can, of course, take into account changes that have been approved on the way. Now we have to say that in some cases people think when the work has been done that the project is finished, but it's not really true. We still have to go through this closing step of the project management process. It's even important to do this because we need to transfer the project to the user. The user can be the internal operations management, it can be to the customer, and of course, in order to that, we have to close procurements, we have to look at lessons learned, we have to look at the project review, saving documentations, as-built plans, and so on. All these things have to be concluded, have to be finished. If we don't do that, we can have a lot of problems later on. A very important element about project is what we call the project documentation and the as-built plans. Now, the scope has been approved at the beginning of the project, and it may be that some information will only be available after completing certain activities. So the scope is there. The scope may say, okay, we create one data site where we have a specific data line which is connected to a specific data port with a type of router in a specific location, and to that router we have the internal network connected. Now this in fact this data, what type of router you're using, the references of the data line, telephone numbers, things like that are not part of the scope. They are not described in the scope, but these are very valuable informations if you want to deal with the project later on, if somebody wants to update something or if you want to do troubleshooting. On the other hand, there may be some minor or even important changes that have been approved, for example, changing a door or changing the layout on a plan. All these things are important. They've been approved, but they're different from the original plans. And the as-built plans come basically, or the as-built element or description comes typically from the construction. How was the house built? So basically, when we look at all these elements, when we want to have a good documentation and we want to be sure that we can deal with the result later on, we need those as-built plans. As-built plans are very important, and they are part of the handover from the project to operations. We also look at lessons learned and knowledge management. Projects are important sources of obtaining knowledge, and knowledge is a value. The real value of a company is not only its assets, but it's also the value of their knowledge, the knowledge that they gather by doing business, by doing projects. Companies increase their value by increasing the knowledge, and they can share it with other teams. So other teams, in fact, will get that information, and each project leads to new experiences and knowledge, and we have to keep that knowledge. Evaluating lessons learned is also very important, and it will improve project performance, and it's basically some part of knowledge management. Now we're now talking about closing, and closing, we typically look at it at the end of the project or at the end of the phase. Now that's not necessarily the case, because when we look at the end of the project, one of the elements that we would have, we could say, hey, we have a very nice lesson and you're sharing at the end of the project. We may be losing some opportunities here. Imagine that what you are doing, what you learned would be very interesting for activities that are ongoing. If you wait till the end of the project, the people will only know about it, will say, oh, if I would have known it before, it would have been better. So basically, lessons learned, you should not be waiting till the end of the project. You can do it while you are doing the weekly review meetings. You can share the information with the people and you can share it immediately. This is basically one of the advantages of an agile approach, where everybody is working on the sprint and the information, the lessons learned, are shared immediately at that moment. I already spoke about the project handover. We have to transfer the project to operations or to the customer, and it's very important that it's done at that moment, because it's only after that, that's one of the main elements, that the project management team can be released. And you have to be aware that once you release the team, it's very difficult to get it back. Other people may need the project managers to do the work, and once you release the team, they're gone. So it's something you have to be sure that everything has been done, and to be sure that you release only the people once the elements, when everything has been prepared for the handover. Now, when you want to manage the life cycle of the project, the customer or the operations department should have all the necessary documentation, and that documentation will be the baseline for future improvements, updates and changes. Based on that information, people may be doing troubleshooting when there is a problem with a site. If you want to upgrade certain elements, you have to know, for example, where the router is. We used to have projects and we didn't know where the router was, so we had to find where is that router. It was somewhere in the building because it was working, and you cannot say, hey, talk to me, where are you? We found the router, for example, somewhere in a closet or in a toilet, and it took us some time to just find where it was. These things have to be avoided, so we have to know all the information, where the routers are, what they are, what is the equipment, where are the electric lines and things like that. Another important element relates to outstanding contracts and issues, and it's about procurement. Now, when we are dealing with a project, we may have some contracts outstanding, we're doing some procurement, and we have to close everything in order to avoid problems during the lifetime of the project. One of the companies I met during my career was, for example, upgrading data lines. And the thing was that the old data lines were not terminated. And the project was finished, but the upgrade was done. The telecom company got a contract for installing a new telephone line, but they didn't get the demand of taking out the old telephone line. So basically what happened is that the company kept on receiving invoices for those unused telephone lines, and they had to make a new project just to clean up everything. Basically, it's a waste of time and money because the team should have done it before. Now, contracts and all issues should be closed before officially closing the project and before releasing the entire team. Everything has to be cleaned up. There should nothing be open or left open so that it could create problems later on. So that was it for the last step when we look at project closing. Project closing and the last step of the 10-step process. Now let's have a look at some other interesting items related to the 10-step process, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you and bye-bye.